Alright, let's see how we did. Ooh, we got a little bit of wobbles. I have my... Anytime you're using a gyro and you see those wobbles, that means your gyro's turned up too high. So just turn your gyro down a smidge to get rid of the wobbles. And I have this gyro I can control from my radio. Still have a little bit of... Ooh, almost hit that car. Send it indeed. Okay, let's see where we're at on speed. Dude, super stable now. I like it. Means we can push the speed up. Getting a little... I got a crosswind here. I don't know if that's coming into effect. Let's do another pass this direction. Bring it back. Ooh, that was full throttle. Looks like I lost a couple wheels. So we have our first casualty of the speed run. We sheared off our axles. And something's going on there that's not supposed to be. Alright, so first let's see how we did. Okay, so we're still registering. Let's get a read. Well, we did not break 60, 57 miles an hour. Not too bad. Not what we wanted though. It seems to have problems when I let off the throttle. It wants to, it loses control. Lost a headlight. Hey there, my name is Bryce and welcome to my YouTube channel, Jacko Trades. In today's video, we're going to go over our MF-01X speedrun car that we've been working on for the last week. This is for the 2024 Poor Boys RC Speedrun Challenge. This year that chassis is the Tamiya MF-01X, and we happen to have one of those built up in our collection, and so we've been messing around with it all week, trying to get it to go fast and be stable, and it's been quite the ride. The more I play with this car, the more I'm really digging the platform and kind of respecting what Tamiya did with the design. I'm also pushing the limits of this car, as noted by some of the videos and runs that I've done. I think it's already going faster than it was ever intended to go. The body's been holding up pretty good. It's got some road rash, but nothing that's preventing me from continuing to run it for the challenge. Actually, I'm looking back here. I wonder if I think I actually poked a hole through it. So yeah, I just want to go over what I've done to the car and where I'm at. In case you haven't seen Phil's video, you should head over to Poor Boys RC, check out his video on the rules of the game. Phil's structured the contest a little differently this year in that he's basically giving people a month to kind of shake down the car and work out all the bugs, so that first week on August 15th, people will basically be posting up speeds after having worked kind of through their car and understanding their car and knowing what their car is capable of and where they want to take it. Also, it gives you a chance to kind of work with your car for a month and figure out what category you want to end up in, having spent some time with the car. Because once you pick that category, you're stuck with it for the duration of the competition, which I think is actually a pretty good idea. I know I was one of those that was kind of bouncing around last year between brushed and brushless, ending up in brushless in the end. This year, I'm pretty confident I'm going to end up in the open class. I've already got quite a few custom-made parts on this car, which I'm going to go over in this video, and then I'll actually post another video kind of outlining the steps to get your car up and running and stable, for those that don't want to work through the trial and error. And I'm not an expert. I have less than a week of experience with this platform. I built it up 4 years ago. I ran it for a couple of minutes, threw it on the shelf, then I pulled it back off the shelf, dusted it off this past week. I've been playing with it for the last 3 or 4 days. So I've never raced it. I've never done speed runs. I've barely even run a pack through it. So I'm not the expert. This is my personal experiences with the car and my experiences with speedrun cars and getting kind of goofy platforms to go fast with the CW01 lunchbox and the TT02. I've been able to get those to go fast, and I've been kind of applying the same things that I've learned from those cars on this car, and it's allowed me to kind of get the speeds faster. Getting to those speeds faster than breaking through some of that trial and error. My strategy on speedrun cars has been to kind of start at the beginning with a stock car, stock motor, and then kind of take baby steps, progressing in speed, stability, and aerodynamics, so that with each step along the way you kind of understand what's going on and you understand what's causing you problems. If you try to do everything all at once, I think people struggle with that, and they get a really hot motor in their car and they've got a big pack and they've done all this stuff to it, but they don't necessarily understand the platform, and it causes it makes it more challenging, I think, to get a fast car. So my philosophy has always been you start from the beginning and do baby steps, and so you know, right now this car is kind of in its 4th phase of iteration, where I started with a pseudo stock setup. Basically I had bearings and a brushless motor. It was pretty fast out of the gate. It was probably too fast for the stability because it had stock suspension, and I cleaned up the suspension with that same motor. I threw on a taller pinion, so I got both stability and speed, and it was super stable. So now I'm starting to push the speed, and my speed is actually good now, where I'm getting respectable numbers, but now I'm running into stability. It's kind of that back and forth where you go from speed to stability to speed to stability. You know, you get into your high numbers, and then the car is unstable. Then you work through those bugs to figure out what it takes to make it stable. Then it's stable again, and you start pushing the speed again, and it's just this back and forth. And that's how I have learned how to progress in getting these cars to go fast. And so that's kind of my recommendation. But I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done to this car, and like I said, this is kind of its 4th iteration, or phase 4, I guess, is where we're at. But let's go ahead and look at it. So as I said, I started the car stock. I had bearings, I had a 4350 kV brushless motor setup from Amazon. It's probably like a $60 special with this 45 amp speed controller. And then the stock suspension. And that car, I did 23 with that. It was pretty squirrely, hard to control, so my next step was to improve stability. So what I did to improve stability was I dropped the stance of the car down as low as it would go with the stock suspension setup, and I threw on some coiled over oil dampers to get rid of those pogo shocks, so I actually had some damping versus just springs. The shocks that I'm actually using are TRF shocks from my Tamiya TT02 SRX kit. I'm not using those shocks obviously on my Speedrun car. I ended up going with the Rollarlo shocks because they're a little more beefier. These are kind of fragile shocks, and that car was seeing a lot of heavy crashes, the 80s, 90s, 100s, and these shocks just weren't holding up. So I pulled them and put the Rollarlos, which are much more beefier shocks for that car. But I think they're doing fine on this car, at least for now. They are kind of fragile shocks. There's some, I guess, what I would call design flaws in them, even though they are TRFs. But their robustness is not really there for whatever reason. I also got rid of the servo saver, so I basically took an aftermarket servo arm, which most servo arms are only designed for a single ball stud, and so I designed and machined an adapter plate so that I could have dual ball studs, and that sits on a slot so I can actually adjust the length of my servo arm. The other thing that I did for stability, well, actually that was it basically. That was kind of phase. That was phase 1, I guess, or phase 2. I don't know. I've lost track. Basically improving stability. Then I went from a 16-tooth pinion. So basically, with a 16-tooth pinion, a 4350 kV motor, and the stock tires, with a 2S LiPo, I was getting 23 miles an hour. That's kind of a baseline. With that recipe, I would expect people to be hitting in the low 20s. So then I put in, on that same motor, I put in a 20-tooth pinion, and I put these contact foams on, and these are slightly larger in diameter. These are 64 millimeter tires. When you're looking at the contact foams, they have two sizes, fronts and rears. The rears are too tall for the contest if you're in the brush and brushless. I think they're 69 millimeters. The front versions are smaller tires, and they're only 64 millimeters, so I think they're legit as far as touring style wheel. That recipe with that motor, that same battery, and the 20-tooth pinion and the slightly taller tires got me 32 miles an hour, 33 without the body. The body robs about 1 mile an hour in speed. I've seen that kind of consistently. The next step, and this has nothing to do with performance, but because I like to run the 2S shorty packs, I made a little battery adapter system. Basically, I have these machine posts that go on the original stock mounts, and then I have these end plates. So on this side, it's permanently affixed, or semi-permanent with screws, and on this side, it uses body clips. And so that snugly mounts that 2S LiPo or shorty pack in the battery compartment. So moving on to the next phase, I was happy with the squat, but I wanted to get it lower. I wanted a lower stance because, with my TT02, I ended up dropping that thing as low as I could get it, where it wasn't scratching the ground. And so you can't lower this unless you come up with some aftermarket shock towers. And I think you can actually buy these shock towers. I ended up buying some because I knew exactly what I wanted on my shock tower. So my goal is to take it from whatever the stance was with the factory settings, or the factory adjustment points, and lower it by 6 millimeters. So on the front of this car doesn't have a typical shock tower. It has these two mounting points where the shocks mount to. And so what I did is I designed the shock tower that mounts to those 2 points, and it allows you to basically swing those shocks up and over, and that gives me 6 millimeters of drop in the front. Then I have 3 other points where I can get in 2 millimeter increments. I can actually raise the car up again if I want to, or 6 millimeter drop is the lowest it'll go. On the rear, I did the same thing. I basically dropped it 6 millimeters, and I have 2 other positions in 2 millimeter increments to raise it back up. And so that got me the stance that we see now, and that worked out pretty nice. No effect on speed. It did improve stability. This thing drives like my TT-02 really, as far as handling. That's actually one thing I haven't looked at or considered, but I am thinking about is locking maybe the front or the rear diff. I think on my, I'm trying to remember what I did on my TT-02 and I can't, but I think at one point I was running a locked front. I might be running, I think I'm running super heavyweight on the rear, so it's not locked, it's just heavy. So I might look at doing something like that on this car. But anyways, I digress. So I dropped it 6mm with the new shock towers. Stance is good. I had to trim the body a little bit to get better clearance. I don't have body posts, so instead of raising the body, I cut out the wheel wells for the body for that lowered stance. And it drove quite well. But again, no speed increase. So then this afternoon, sorry, there's a lot that's been happening, so this is kind of a long-winded video. So the next phase was to make the car go faster with the gearing that I had on hand. These gears, the spur gear and the pinion gear, are mod 0.6 gears, which is kind of uncommon, but it's not impossible to find gears for that. I just don't have a very good collection of that particular gear pitch in my collection. So I had the 20 tooth, and then I had a 27 and a 28. Looking at the gearbox geometry, the biggest gear you can get in it without modifying it, I think is going to be around a 25 tooth. I don't have a 25 tooth, but that's just based on my gear calculator, which says the diameter of a 25 tooth gear should fit in this without modifying it. All I had was the 27, 28. So I took the gearbox off, disassembled it, and put it up on the mill, and I machined it out so that I could get a 28 tooth pinion into this gearbox. And that's what I have now. I actually screwed up, and when I first ran it, I ran it with a 27 tooth with that 4350, and with that I was getting 40 miles an hour. So that was a pretty good improvement. And actually the other thing too is that the speeds that I've been hitting have been kind of in alignment with my guesstimates, my calculations, starting with that baseline. I keep, as I went, going from 23 to 33 was what I was expecting, and going from 33 to 40 was also what I was expecting. So it's nice to see that the numbers are holding true for the car. But I kind of finished that run, that 40 mile an hour run, early on in the afternoon, and I wanted to keep going faster. I'm having a lot of fun with the car. I'm on vacation, and so I've got time on my hands. So I went ahead and dropped in my Castle Mamba X system that I had. I happen to have one of these in my stock. It's a 7700 kV motor. If you look at the numbers on a 2S, I should be able to get in the 70s. That has not happened. I took it out for a run. It was running okay. I wasn't pulling full throttle runs, and I did a full throttle run, and it lost control and broke. It did kind of a little sideways tumble. I lost both of my rear wheels. They basically sheared off the axles. The axles on this kit are not very good material. I think it's just kind of mild steel. I don't think it's hardened. Or if it is, it's not very hard. So both rear wheels sheared off the axles. It's funny, all this is happening in the first week, but we've still got like 10 weeks to go on this. I guess my thought process is I'm going to hit a wall real quick, and I want to hit that wall sooner than later so that I can kind of pause and spend some time thinking about how to get past that wall. That seems to happen in the speedrun cars, is you kind of hit this wall and you're struggling to get past this wall, and the wall being a particular speed where your car just does not like that speed, and it takes some time to kind of think about it and what changes you need to make to get past it and kind of ask for help. So I want to hit those walls early so that I have time to think about it and get past it. So anywho, I sheared off those axles. I don't have any spare parts for this car. I was looking for new drive shafts. I wasn't looking for the stock ones. I was looking for some universal drive shafts. And what's interesting is there's not, I mean, they're out there, but they're all in China and Hong Kong. If you want to get them shipped, you're looking at a week and a half. That's the other thing to consider is where your parts are coming in and making sure you have time to order spare parts if you're going to be throwing parts at it. You can get the Tamiya drive shafts, but they're like $30 from Amazon, and they only had 1 or 2 in stock. A-Main, I don't think, has them in stock, so everything's coming from overseas. Tamiya USA does have them in stock, but they're $40 there, and I really didn't want to spend $40 on drive shafts. So because I am open class, or I'm probably going to be open class, I designed some new rear arms. I basically took the stock arms and I lengthened them. So I have one-piece arms that I 3D printed. I took those stock arms, I lengthened them by 7 millimeters, and that was enough that I could squeeze in some TTO2 drive shafts in the rear. I think technically the TTO2s are like 38 millimeter shafts, and the MF-01X are 28 millimeters, so they're 10 millimeters longer. But with the 7 millimeter increase, and I pulled the O-ring from the inner cups, that was enough clearance to shoehorn those longer drive shafts. So I'm running the Yeah Racing steel universals now, so I've got the longer drive shafts. I've widened my stance, so it's 7 millimeters on each side, so I've widened my stance by 14 millimeters. And to be honest, I think it actually looks pretty good. We're starting to take advantage of these kind of wider fenders on the bug body, as we can kind of see here. So the wheels start to poke out a little bit, but it's not obnoxious. So I think the 7 millimeters kind of, so the wheels start to poke out. So the wheels start to poke out. See if I can get this. I'm gonna put the body clips back on. So the nice thing is, I mean, those wheels are, you know, it's 14 millimeters wider now, and those wheels are starting to poke out, and I think it looks pretty decent. Probably if we hit some bumps, we're gonna rub that wheel on the body, but I'm okay with that for now until I start cutting up my tires. That's where we're at. I haven't run it yet, but we're basically back to where we hopefully will get some good runs. So what did I get with my motor before I crashed? My run was 57 miles an hour. So I think that's a pretty decent speed for now, this early in the game. But it is open class, so I'm expecting all the heavy hitters to come in and start pushing the the limits on this car. You know, we're probably going to see 100 mile an hour cars, maybe. I don't know. I mean, 57 is pretty fast, and it kind of, I was not expecting it to crash at 57, but we're dealing with a kind of a goofy body, so it's not the best aerodynamics. I know when you start getting to the 60, 70 mile an hour. I think my lunchbox flew at 45 at one point until I did some aero on it to help prevent that. So seeing things getting unstable at 57 is not crazy, but it's just going to make it that much more challenging to get into the 100 mile an hour club with the MF-01X. I don't even know if it's possible. There's no kind of track records out there for these cars going this fast. So Tamiya Club has the top 10 fastest Tamiya cars list. It's more than 10 cars. I think they have like tens and tens and tens of cars, like 50. Actually, the total entries is probably close to 100 entries. What's interesting is there isn't a single MF-01X on that list. It's up there for the taking to have the fastest listed MF-01X if you want it. There's 2 categories that you could fall in. There's a 4-wheel drive class, in which case your car would have to be you can do any mods, you just can't modify the gearbox. So the machining that I did on my gearbox would not fly. It has to be a stock gearbox, but you can run your own custom gears if you want to. And then they have kind of an open class as well, where anyone can enter whatever they post. What's interesting to note, and I'm sure a lot of you already knew this from the M series, is they have a speed gear set for this gearbox, where that the spur and the counter / idler gears the ratios are slightly different, where you get more speed out of the car. So that is an option as well for gearing. I think with the right motor and the right gears, without modifying that gearbox, I think you could probably easily get into the 50s. So I don't know. It's something to maybe shoot for in the brushless category. But I don't think Phil's Contest doesn't prohibit you from modifying your gearbox. I think the only limitation as far as hop-ups go in the brush and brushless is that you have to use off-the-shelf hop-ups. You can't do all the custom parts that I'm starting to do on this. The other thing with these new lower arms is I went through and I removed a lot of the slop. You know, on the stock wheels, there's a lot of slop in these wheels, and so I went through and kind of cleaned that up by going with undersized holes and reaming them out. And I still need, I'm going to do that on the front too. I'll probably end up replacing these lower arms with my own arms just to kind of clean up the slop and maybe change the geometry a little bit. I don't know. There's a lot of time to play around with this chassis. So anywho, that is my first week rundown. Sorry for the long video. Lots been happening. It's a cool little car. I really like the way it looks now. For some reason, I feel like it's night and day. And I mean, it's partially the stands, probably the black wheels versus those gray plastic wheels. But I really I'm liking the direction the car's taking. It's a little less goofy than the lunchbox. I should pull that out. So here's my my lunchbox, which is kind of goofy looking. It's got the stretched rear end. The front end's dropped down pretty low. Not much in the way of shocks on this guy. It's got that wheelie bar. I cut out the back. That's kind of what helped me with my aerodynamics, is cutting out that back side. But this is a fast car. I mean, this one will do 59 miles an hour. It doesn't flip, so that's my record on this guy. But it is goofy looking. A lot of people don't like this car because they say it's not a real lunchbox, but whatever. Does anyone actually own an unmodified lunchbox? But I am liking where this car's going. It's so far where we've stayed true with the platform, but it's very early. There's a lot that could change on this. I think we're gonna have to do something on the bottom for aero. Kind of close up the body so that it doesn't become a sail. And that's all I've got for today. Hopefully tomorrow I'll get out and get another run. See how the wider stance helps out, if it does help out, if these arms hold up, and see if I can get a full throttle pass without crashing. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Take care. Bye. All right, this just in, we got breaking news. We came out here with our rebuilt MF-01X. I had to make those custom arms so I could use the TT02 drive shafts. And we just broke our personal best, getting 60 miles an hour with a clean run, no crash. So yeah, we we broke that 60 mile an hour mark. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't know what to do after this. I guess go faster, but it's hard to control at 60 miles an hour, so maybe I need to start looking at stability again. But thanks for tuning and watching. Take care. Bye.
Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Okay. I'm gonna try in the other direction since I seem to have a headwind there. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Okay. We held it. Let's bring it back. So no crashes. I went against the wind and with the wind. Let's see what we got. I'm trying to break that 60 mile an hour with this little guy. All right. Stop, read. There it is, 60 miles an hour. So that was 2 passes back and forth. I think the wind is helping a little bit. But yeah, we broke 60. So the body's definitely taking a beating. We lost our rally lights. I think we're doing okay though.